Welcome to the second quarterfinal match of the tournament. Today Mr. Turtle will be playing Avacyn's Glory while we're on Sylvan Might, the mono-green elf deck. We mulligan a 1-lander and keep a somewhat sketchy hand with 5 lands and 2 4-drops. And here's the feared turn 1 champion of the parish from our opponent, which will get a +1/+1 counter for every human he plays. And here's a Gather the Townsfolk pumping the champion of the parish and putting us down to 17 right away. We draw a 3-drop in Timberwatch Elf, and an attack from the champion puts us down to 14. No follow-up, and here we decide to play out our Heedless One instead of the Magistrate to protect the more valuable Magistrate against the many removal spells that Avacyn's Glory has. And here's a Doom Traveler to pump the champion, and an attack puts us down to 10. And here we have a decision once again, because we have a very powerful combo in hand, because our Immaculate Magistrate can put +1/+1 counters on our elves, and our Drago Warcaller in turn gives all our elves +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on him. We don't have any good attacks because we're afraid of a crackback, so we decide to play out our Immaculate Magistrate first to increase the surprise factor when we do play the Drago Warcaller next turn. But here's a Baneslayer Angel, which is gonna make it very hard for us to race. Luckily we draw a Wellwisher here, which will keep us in the game for a couple more turns, as it can gain us life equal to the number of elves in play. So we decide to cast it in favor of our Warcaller, as our aggressive plan isn't gonna work out with a Baneslayer in play. We do have an attack with the Heedless One, however, so that's what we're gonna do first. And our opponent decides to chump block with the Doom Traveler to make a 1/1 flying creature token, and we pass a turn without playing the Warcaller. An attack from the Flyers puts us down to 4, and our opponent plays out yet another Baneslayer Angel, shows us a path to exile but decides not to play it just yet on the Wellwisher, so gives us an extra turn. We cast our Drago Warcaller and try to attack with the Heedless One, as we can pump it with our Magistrate and Timberwatch Elf, but our opponent does have the path to exile to take out our Heedless One, so an attack from the 2 angels will be enough to take the first game for Avacyn's Glory. Unfortunately we don't have any sideboard plan, as the elf deck doesn't have removal spells for those angels. So on to game 2, where we mulligan yet another 1-lander, but keep a fine second hand with a turn 1 Essence Warden, which will gain us life whenever a creature enters the battlefield, and no turn 1 champion of the parish is good news. We attack, putting our opponent down to 19, and cast a Wellwisher to go up to 21 and now 22 after a Grand Abolisher is cast, just a 2/2 in this matchup. We cast a Timberwatch Elf, gain 3 life, have no attacks this turn. And here our opponent casts a Mentor of the Meek. On our turn we cast a Sylvan Messenger, revealing just a Fauna Shaman, and an attack from the Essence Warden plus an activation from the Timberwatch Elf puts our opponent down to 14, while we keep gaining life from the Wellwisher, and a Gather the Townsfolk plus a double activation from the Mentor of the Meek draws our opponent 2 cards. On our turn we cast another Sylvan Messenger, revealing a bunch more elves. We also cast our Copperhorn Scout, and we attack with our Messenger, which has Trample, and an activation from the Timberwatch Elf puts our opponent down to a very low life total. And here's a Champion of the Parish, plus an Oblivion Ring taking out the Timberwatch Elf. On our turn we are aware of a potential sweeper from our opponent, so we decide to just cast our Fauna Shaman to try and search a win condition next turn. So we don't attack, but we can activate our Wellwisher however to gain some more life and go up to 50 life. And here this attack from our opponent strongly indicates a sweeper, but just in case it's a bluff we decide to block it safely, as we are on a very high life total and the 4 life doesn't matter. But here's a sweeper nonetheless. Luckily we draw a Sylvan Messenger to rebuild our board, and we also cast a Nissa's Chosen. Our opponent on his turn casts a 2/2 First Striker, and a Fiend Hunter takes out our Nissa's Chosen. And here we cast a Essence Warden plus a multi-kicked Drago Warcaller. But our opponent has another Fiend Hunter to take out the Warcaller, and an attack puts us down to 46. And here we draw a Gempalm Strider, which is going to be very important in the following turns, but first we want to put some more elves on the battlefield, so we cast a Well-Wisher plus a Heedless one. And a Baneslayer Angel is going to make things a little tricky. So here we decide to cast our Jiraga Warcaller, but only kick it once, leaving 4 mana for our Gempalm Strider, but a Path to Exile takes out our Heedless one. So that plan isn't gonna work out this turn. And a Fiend Hunter takes out our Warcaller, and an attack from the Angel puts us down to 50. A Sylvan Messenger only reveals a Nissa's Chosen, which we will cast, so we pass a turn, and an attack puts us down to 47, but Well-Wisher puts us back to 52. And we draw another Well-Wisher, but now we decide to attack with all our elves besides Well-Wisher, and a lot of blocks happen. So we're able to take out a bunch of our opponent's creatures thanks to our Gempalm Strider. And unfortunately our Jiraga Warcallers we got back from the Fiend Hunters don't have any +1/+1 counters on them. Our opponent casts a bunch of irrelevant creatures, and on our turn we cast a Fauna Shaman and a Timberwatch Elf. So next turn our Fauna Shaman will be able to search up a win condition. We pass a turn, and here we activate our Fauna Shaman, discarding a Essence Warden, and we will select a Jiraga Warcaller, kick it a bunch of times, and an attack will secure a victory. So it's 1 apiece, still no sideboarding, so up to game 3. We keep a fine opening hand with some early action and cast a turn 1 Essence Warden. Our opponent does have the turn 1 Champion of the Parish, which is going to make it very difficult. And we could have sneaked in 1 point of damage, but didn't. And a turn 2 Gather the Townsfolk completes the cycle, and an attack puts us down to 20. Here we cast a Timberwatch Elf in an attempt to raise the champion. But our opponent casts a Mikaeus, which is very good in this matchup as we don't have any removal for it. And an attack puts us down to 18. Here we decide to cast our Magistrate, and an attack plus activation puts our opponent down to 16. And an attack from all the tokens cannot be blocked because of Mikaeus, so we go down to 10, and Oblivion Ring takes out our Magistrate. Here we have to decide between casting a Fauna Shaman to try and find a Well-Wisher to gain us some life, or we can just cast a Heedless one, which at this point can still trade with the Champion of the Parish, so that's what we end up doing. We pass a turn. Our opponent just casts a Baneslayer Angel and passes a turn without attacking. Here we have the option of just casting our Fauna Shaman to try and find a Well-Wisher next turn, but we cast a Lethal Stampede first, which does find us a Well-Wisher right away, so we cast it and pass a turn. Mikaeus gets a +1/+1 counter, and another Baneslayer will make it very difficult for us. And the first one attacks, all creatures get +1/+1. And we go down to 8. Here we just try to overload the board with as many elves as we can to gain as much life as possible from our Well-Wisher. So we cast a Nissa's Chosen, a Fauna Shaman, and a Jiraga Warcaller just as a 1/1. And we activate Well-Wisher, going up to 18 life. Here our opponent casts a Mentor of the Meek and a Thalia, making all non-creature spells cost 1 more. And an attack from the Angels puts us down to 8. Here we decide to discard our Heedless one to our Fauna Shaman to search up another Well-Wisher. And before activating our first Well-Wisher, we cast all our elves except our Warcaller, so we can discard it next turn to search yet another Well-Wisher. And we don't have any really good attacks, so we pass a turn, activate Well-Wisher, go up to 19 life. And a Fiend Hunter takes out another Well-Wisher. Mentor of the Meek draws him a card, and an attack from the Angels plus activation from Mikaeus puts us down to 6 again. And here we decide to discard our Warcaller to our Fauna Shaman to search up another Well-Wisher. And unfortunately our opponent will be able to kill us next turn if he activates Mikaeus to pump his Angels. And an Oblivion Ring takes out Well-Wisher, and that's what happens. Our opponent wins the match 2-1. So congratulations to Avacyn's Glory, which will advance to the semi-final match against Deadwalkers, which will be very interesting. But join me next time where we will look at the Mind Maze and Dodge and Burn match, which will be very exciting. So I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.